Mr. Sambamurthy. To do justice to a problem as big as financial inclusion in 7 minutes is perhaps a very, very huge challenge. But nevertheless, I will try to do that. Trying to kind of present a very different perspective here. I think we have talked about what Mr. Sharma mentioned, that perhaps the way forward from a technology standpoint, from a back-end standpoint is all ready. But financial inclusion is all about front-end delivery. I'm sure the back-end with the UID coming in place will be available, will be applicable and will work. But the problem continues to be at the front end, at the delivery end. And I think that is where the financial inclusion, the wheels come off the car and everything stops. So let me try to put this in perspective. I'd like to share with you, first of all, that we can draw from the telecom revolution that has happened. Telecom, when it started in the 90s, you had 50 million subscribers, perhaps paying 16 rupees a transaction. Today we've gone to 600 plus million or close to that number, and it's 30 paise per transaction. Mr. Sambamurthy mentioned cost of security transactions is 40 paise. I think all this has happened over a period of time, and I think the various stakeholders involved in this process worked it out together and made it possible. And today the best technology perhaps in telecom exists in India. I think the important thing is to draw from inspiration from this for a project as humongous as financial inclusion, that if telecom could do it, I think there is a way that the banking system and the other stakeholders involved can also replicate this in the financial inclusion context. I think so. The task is achievable, though daunting. And let me quickly list out some of the factors that are favorable for financial inclusion today. And I think this is important because financial inclusion will be driven on the back of all of these. I think technology exists. Mr. Sharma so eloquently told us about the various technologies that UID is putting into play. I think there are technology solutions that are available. Telecom reach is wider than ever before. I think today we can reach out to as many villages as possible or as required. There's a very mature and stable banking and financial environment in the country, which is heartening because that is also a backbone for financial inclusion. Majority of the banks have gone on to core banking system. Again, a very important prerequisite actually for getting into financial inclusion. The regulatory bodies are actually framing policies and guidelines. You've heard about micro ATMs. The guidelines have come out from IBA. The guidelines are coming out from UID. So I think there is a standardization of technology and processes very necessary because it's all about scale. Implementation of UID will certainly complement the FI initiative, and RBI, I think, like never before, is actually engaged in financial inclusion and engaging in actually providing and revising its own policies and offering greater flexibility to see that financial inclusion takes place. So I think we have a strong RBI drive and mandate backing this, and also we have strong government support and commitment. So I think these are very strong factors that show that we can replicate the success that we had in the telecom market and perhaps in the securities market and perhaps some other examples where India has been able to. But all examples all over the world fail because of India's size and magnitude and the magnitude of the challenge that we want to do in a very short period of time. There are challenges, there are very, very serious challenges, and I think the most serious challenge which nobody has an answer to today, and that is one of the big showstoppers, I would say, in financial inclusion is high transaction costs and small ticket sizes. Now, this is a paradox. We need to find a way forward. How do we balance high transaction costs and small ticket sizes of transactions and ensure that, what the urban consumer gets today is also made available to the rural consumer? There are low transaction volumes, and these low transaction volumes are because of lack of financial literacy, the lack of awareness of using banking systems, and therefore it is going to be a while before transactions will actually ramp up and make the scale possible. And it's heartening to hear that the government can play a very effective role in this by pulling all government transactions into one bucket so that there is enough volume and value that can flow through the system. I think the business correspondent model has been restrictive so far. I think in April a big announcement was made about extending it to kirana shops, etc. And it's heartening to see that yesterday there was another announcement by RBI that banking correspondents can be for-profit companies as well. So I think there is a scope and play for all corporates, NGOs, everybody who has a rural reach to come forward and actually play an active role in financial inclusion. So I think the inclusiveness is starting actually from the end of bringing banking correspondents into the network from all frames on all aspects of society. And it's heartening to see that RBI is moving very swiftly on this and is actually showing a lot of flexibility in making this network happen. I think another showstopper is the viability of a profitable business model for banks and technology vendors and BCs. And this is a question which everybody is looking the other way today. Banks don't want to shoulder the burden. I would tend to say this because banks have not put their foot forward actually in taking the risks on their shoulders. And nobody knows who's going to pay for it. The rural consumer doesn't have the pocket to pay for this. The technology vendors are faced with high costs, and the delivery mechanisms also are faced with high costs. So I think there is some kind of rationalization that has to happen all across, and some kind of meeting of goals so that all stakeholders in this process can actually contribute to a viable model that is sustainable. Otherwise, we are going to have many false starts. We are going to make many starts in various areas. We are going to have some small successes, but overall financial inclusion will not happen because this is entirely a game of scale, and that scale can be achieved only through profitability or viability at least, and sustainability over a longer period of time. So an appropriate operational rollout model is also required. I think the operationalization, the processes are being defined at a very frantic pace, and I think there's significant work being done there. There is also a lack of financial literacy and awareness of the rural customer. This will come over time, and I think all the banking correspondents will need to play a very effective role in not just enrolling customers, but actually taking financial literacy to people. Increasing overall consciousness at all levels, I think it is happening. In the public space, there is a lot of debate and discussion on financial inclusion, and I think everybody concerned realizes that the importance of financial inclusion in making India a success story, in keeping the growth momentum going. I think financial inclusion has a very important role to play. Just a quick look at all the stakeholders. We are all aware of the stakeholders, but I think the purpose of this slide is to say that every stakeholder here needs to make a contribution which not only is limited to their domain, but I think which contributes to successfully translating an idea which is today widely discussed to a delivery model, to a mechanism that can actually take it and deliver it to customers in a very effective way. And I think each is playing a very vital role. And for example, the IBA has already given the micro ATM specs, and they have already said that these are the conforming standards. So I think, for example, the RBI is relaxing the business correspondent norms, and I'm sure that KYC norms are also going to be diluted to enable enrollment. I think financial services organizations, NGOs are coming forward to play the role of business correspondents. There's a move to create banking correspondents out of NBFCs and microfinance institutions. So I think there's a lot of balls in the air, and there's a lot of movement in this direction. And all this has to come together at the right time so that this can actually get translated into visible action on the field, and a delivery mechanism that can then we talked about cloud computing. I think cloud computing and sharing of resources is perhaps one way of sharing costs, which can dramatically bring down costs of delivery, at least at the back end. And at the front end, the use of micro ATMs, the use of lower ATM machines, the regular ATM machines can also help in reaching out to the masses. Quick look at some of the critical success factors. I think mass customer enrollment, I would say, perhaps should not be considered as an end goal. Today, because of the urgency and the vigor with which banks are following up on this, it seems to be more like a customer enrollment drive. But I think the larger goal of financial inclusion will be when the consumers can actually avail benefits of financial services and derive the results of that. Because without that, I think the financial inclusion program will only be limited to enrollment rather than actual usage and benefits. Stakeholders collaboration we talked about, and I think the underbanked and the unbanked, no single entity can manage this. I think it's a collaborative effort, and we all need to work together to make this happen. Lastly, I think the important thing is there is a risk and there is a reward, and I think there has to be a proper risk-reward sharing mechanism. which will, I dare say, if you look at the long-term power projects, for example, the government of India, through their various regulators, have decided that you would get a 16% rate of return if you set up a long-term power project. I think the time has come for financial inclusion projects to be looked at in the same respect, because you are creating infrastructure for the country which is going to serve the country for a much longer period of time, but a delivery mechanism has to be set up in a short period of time, so there's a cost absorption mechanism that has to be there. So I think the sharing of risk and reward between banks, vendors, suppliers, all of that, including UID, which is going to be commercialized for authentication, needs to be in a manner that, in a fair and transparent manner, and also in a manner in which the rewards and risks are shared, so that you can get more investment, more participation into this whole process. Effective use of technology is there. I would urge you to visit the Forbes Technosis stall. You can see some examples of these technologies in terms of ATMs, in terms of micro ATMs, which can help. And I'm sure there are other technologies that are emerging. I think this is a time for innovation, and as a technology company, we feel it's a great opportunity for technology companies to innovate both in terms of functionality and in terms of cost, and participate in this larger financial inclusion effort in a very productive manner without actually looking for some immediate benefits. But I think there are long-term benefits for all of us in this whole financial inclusion game. Other aspects of financial services such as insurance, loans, etc. also need to come in, just as Mr. Sharma talked about the banking, the government part of the various government schemes coming together through one single account. I think other things like insurance and microcredit can also be funneled through the same accounts. So viability then increases and improves. Enlarging the categories of entities to function as BCs, I think, is happening as we speak, and we hope that more organizations, whether be it corporates, be it NGOs, will step forward and function as active BCs, and also help overall kind of prime the rural economy, because the banking correspondent will become a very important center in the rural space. I think, summing up, I would say that today, as we see it, I think financial inclusion can't stand purely as a business venture. It has to have, there are no immediate returns for any of the parties or any of the stakeholders involved. The returns are actually going to come over a period of 5 to 10 years, and this is the time to actually get into an investment mode and use innovation, perhaps use technology, use a little bit of flexibility in creating a system that will help us actually not only taking financial inclusion to the rural masses, but also use it as a vehicle to actually take the economy and keep it on its growth path. And India is an enviable success story across the world today, and I think if we achieve financial inclusion, the envy is only going to increase. Thank you very much.